There are actors who play parts. And then there are those who transform them, who breathe into fictional characters a kind of life, nuance, and soul that linger long after the credits roll. Julian McMahon was one of those rare talents. He wasn't always the loudest, the flashiest, or the most outspoken, but his presence was undeniable. Whether as a brooding villain, a tortured lover, or a charming anti-hero, Julian commanded the screen with magnetic stillness. You didn't always know what he was going to do next, and that's what made him unforgettable. On July 2, 2025, Julian McMahon passed away peacefully at the age of 56 after a private battle with cancer. The news came as a shock to many. He had kept his illness quiet, choosing to protect his privacy, his family, and his work above all else. But behind the silence was a man of immense depth, talent, and character, a man who had given decades of compelling performances and left a deep imprint on both the entertainment industry and the hearts of those who knew him. In this tribute, we will remember Julian not only for his iconic roles, from Charms, conflicted Cole Turner to Nip Tuck's unapologetically human Dr. Christian Troy, and as the unforgettable Victor Von Doom in Fantastic Four, but also for the person he was outside the spotlight. A devoted father, a loyal friend, a private soul, and an actor of extraordinary range. William McMahon was born on July 27, 1968, into one of Australia's most prominent and visible families. His father, Sir William McMahon, served as Prime Minister of Australia from 1971 to 1972, making Julian the son of a national leader and heir to a life of prestige and expectation. His mother, Lady Sonia McMahon, was equally high profile, known not just for her elegance and social presence, but also for her grace and compassion. Growing up in Sydney, Julian was raised in a world steeped in politics, diplomacy, and decorum. Yet even from a young age, it was clear he had different ambitions. While his surroundings suggested a future in law or government, Julian found himself drawn to the arts. After attending the prestigious Sydney Grammar School, he briefly studied law at the University of Sydney and economics at the University of Wollongong. But neither field inspired him. Instead, he found unexpected success in the world of modeling. Tall, enigmatic, and strikingly photogenic, Julian quickly made a name for himself on international runways. His modeling career took him to London, Milan, New York, and Paris, giving him a global perspective and introducing him to the performative aspect of persona. It wasn't long before producers and agents took notice. Acting soon followed, almost serendipitously. But once he was in front of a camera, it became clear. Julian McMahon wasn't just a handsome face, he was a born performer. acting career began on Australian television, with his debut in the 1989 soap opera, The Power, The Passion. Though short-lived, the role served as a launchpad. He followed that with a more prominent role on Home and Away, playing Ben Lucini, a role that cemented his status as a rising star in Australia. But Julian didn't want to be boxed in by the limitations of soap operas or typecasting. He had his sights set on something bigger, Hollywood. It was a risky move, especially in the 1990s, when Australian actors rarely made lasting impressions on American television. But McMahon was persistent. In 1996, he landed his first major U.S. role as Detective John Grant on the NBC crime drama, Profiler. Playing an FBI agent alongside Ali Walker, Julian demonstrated that he could hold his own in a serious, serialized drama. He appeared in nearly 90 episodes, quietly building a name for himself as a steady, dependable presence on network TV. His performances were never overplayed. He brought a subtle tension, an internal life, to every role, a rare quality in an era of bombast. But it wasn't until the year 2000 that he would find the role that would catapult him into the hearts of fans around the world. In 2000, Julian McMahon joined the cast of Charmed, the hit supernatural drama about three witch sisters battling evil. Julian played Cole Turner, a mysterious new character who was equal parts love interest and looming threat. What made Cole so unforgettable was his dual identity. He wasn't just a lawyer. He was a half-demon named Balthazar, sent to destroy the Halliwell sisters from within. What followed was one of the most compelling character arcs on genre television. Cole fell in love with Phoebe Halliwell, played by Alyssa Milano, and his struggle to contain his dark side while protecting the woman he loved created a whirlwind of conflict, passion, and tragedy. McMahon's chemistry with Milano was electric, and his portrayal of Cole was layered with internal torment, romantic longing, and moral ambiguity. For many viewers, Cole Turner was more than a villain. He was the love story of the series, a man desperate to be good in a world that demanded evil. Julian's performance was never exaggerated. Instead, he drew the viewer in with subtlety. His expressions, silences, and brooding energy created a deeply human character within a world of fantasy. Though his arc ended in season 5, Cole Turner became one of the most iconic and beloved characters in the Charmed universe. Julian McMahon was no longer just an actor from Australia. He was a fan favorite, a star, and a fixture in American pop culture. In 2003, Julian McMahon took on what would become his most celebrated and controversial role, Dr. Christian Troy in the FX drama, Nip, Tuck. Created by Ryan Murphy, the series focused on the personal and professional lives of two plastic surgeons in Miami. But this was no ordinary medical drama. Dr. Christian Troy wasn't a hero. He was arrogant, promiscuous, manipulative, and yet, painfully self-aware. Julian embodied him with such raw honesty that the character quickly became the emotional core of the show. Beneath Troy's polished surface was a man haunted by trauma, yearning for love, and constantly battling his demons. The role demanded everything: vulnerability, intensity, humor, rage, and heartbreak. Julian delivered it all. The writing was sharp, the subject matter was bold, and the show became a cultural touchstone. Nip, Tuck earned critical acclaim and multiple Emmy and Golden Globe wins, with Julian receiving a Golden Globe nomination of his own. What made Christian Troy unforgettable was the way Julian portrayed his contradictions. He was capable of cruelty and compassion in the same breath. He could seduce and self-destruct within minutes. And through it all, Julian never lost sight of the character's humanity. He didn't just play Christian Troy, he revealed him. At the height of his Nip, Tuck fame, Julian made the leap to the big screen in a blockbuster role that seemed tailor-made for him. Victor Von Doom in Marvel's 2005 adaptation of Fantastic Four. As the iconic nemesis of Marvel's first family, Doom required a commanding presence, a sense of intelligence, and an undercurrent of menace. Julian brought all of that, and more. He infused Doom with elegance and danger, combining classic villainy with modern cynicism. His performance in the 2005 film and its 2007 sequel, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, helped shape the tone of early Marvel films before the rise of the MCU. Though the films received mixed critical reviews, Julian's portrayal was widely praised. He stood out in a cast that included Ioan Grufford, Jessica Alba, and Chris Evans, holding his ground with gravitas and intensity. His Victor Von Doom was calculating and charismatic, making him a memorable figure in comic book cinema long before superhero films dominated the box office. Even years later, fans debate whether his version of Doom was one of the most underrated portrayals in the genre. As the 2010s rolled on, Julian continued to take on challenging roles, showing a quieter side of his artistry. In 2020, he returned to network television as Special Agent Jess LaCroix in CBS's procedural drama, FBI, Most Wanted. As the head of the Fugitive Task Force, Julian portrayed a leader grounded in calm strength and emotional intelligence. Gone was the swagger of Christian Troy or the danger of Dr. Doom. Jess LaCroix was a man who had seen it all and carried the weight with dignity. Julian's understated performance earned respect from fans and critics alike. He remained with the series for 3 seasons, and his departure in 2022 left a noticeable gap. In his final years, Julian worked sparingly but purposefully. His last projects, The Surfer, and Netflix's The Residents, showed a mature performer still capable of surprise. He filmed quietly, worked hard, and stayed out of the spotlight. What no one knew, except those closest to him, was that he was facing a battle far more personal. Behind the scenes, Julian was confronting cancer, with characteristic grace and resolve. The announcement of Julian's death in July 2025 stunned the entertainment world. It was sudden, and yet those who knew him best weren't surprised that he chose to keep his illness private. He had always been that way, protective of his space, his peace, his family. Tributes poured in from former co-stars, collaborators, and fans. Alyssa Milano, his longtime friend from Charmed, wrote of his kindness and warmth. Dylan Walsh, his Nip Tuck co-star, reflected on their years together, saying, "This time, you've gone too far, my friend." Iowan Grufford, who starred with him in Fantastic Four, recalled the laughter they shared between takes, even while playing mortal enemies. Fans around the world mourned not just an actor, but a storyteller, a man who had given them characters they grew up with, cried with, fell in love with. On fan pages, tribute videos, and social media, his name trended for days, a reminder of just how many lives he touched. Julian McMahon was never a media darling. He wasn't always on red carpets or making headlines. But he didn't need to be. He let the work speak. And for over 3 decades, it spoke volumes. He gave us characters who lived on the edge of morality, who danced with darkness and love in equal measure. He made us question, feel, and understand. And in doing so, he carved out a legacy not just in Hollywood, but in the lives of those who watched him with admiration. He is survived by his wife, Kelly Paniagua, and his beloved daughter, Madison. But in truth, he is survived by far more. By the stories he told, the hearts he stirred, and the quiet strength he showed to the very end. Julian McMahon, July 27, 1968 to July 2, 2025. Gone too soon, but never forgotten.